Okay, I need you to imagine this for a second. What if you were that child or that teenager that's being told to sit still in class, or to think a little bit harder, or to try a little bit harder, or to pay closer attention, but no matter what, it is hard. And sometimes, what if I'm trying to do my best, but my best is not good enough? Because sometimes the way that I think goes in completely different directions, not in a form of defiancy, but that's just how the brain is wired. But no matter how hard I try, teachers may see that as a distraction, and parents might see that they're not completing their homework assignments or their chores. And sometimes their friends and their peers might see them as the weird kid. But no matter what they are trying to do, they are trying to do their best. It's not a thing about the lack of effort. It's just how their brain is wired. Like I shared in episode 1, in the United States alone, more than 1 in 10 children are being treated for diagnosis of ADHD. And 80% of those kids with ADHD can also have a dual diagnosis, such as anxiety or mood challenges, dysregulation, and they might have some other learning differences, such as dyslexia. And so they try their absolute best to go through those social hurdles all the time just to make it by. It's not about thriving, it's about surviving. On this episode of NeuroCurious, we're going to think sideways about ADHD. Instead of asking, why can't this child just focus? We're going to explore the better question of, why is this child's brain actually trying to do? Or because when we shift that way, we understand attention, behavior, and emotions a little bit differently. What is it that they're trying to communicate with me? So instead of seeing the traits as struggles, how can we see it becoming personal and powerful strengths? Why do we think the way that we do? Or why is it that we have some relationships that thrive while others fall apart? And what's really happening inside of our brains that shapes the way that we feel, connect, as well as live? Hi friends, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Andrew. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a mental health professional. NeuroCurious is a podcast about exploring the human mind and curiosity, from parenting and emotional development to relationships, mental health, and everyday behavior, where each episode looks at the psychology behind real life. Through conversations that blend neuroscience, therapeutic insight, and practical wisdom, my goal is simple: to help you think more deeply, connect more meaningfully, and to live more intentionally. There is a power for emotional connection. Have you ever noticed that when a child struggles with their anxiety, the entire family can often feel it? There might be sleepless nights, or constant reassurance for that child, and even emotional exhaustion that parents feel when they want their child to feel safe and calm. Now, what if the child experiencing anxiety isn't just about the child? What if they're going through these emotional problems within the family system? And then that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today, on how we could explore different therapeutic approaches and interventions that could help shift away the focus from simply just fixing the child, as some would say, because the family can be involved with this. Oftentimes when parents come to me saying, I need you to fix my kid. I need you to, it's like, oh, well, let's talk about this. And they're explaining to me what's going on. I'm like, Mom and Dad, I actually need you to come into this session too. And you know what? They find it just as therapeutic for them as it is for the child, because now they can understand what the child is feeling and experiencing. And they're also able to learn these interventions that has been not only beneficial for the child, but for the parents, the caregivers, as well as the family dynamic. And this is called experiential therapy. And it can be very powerful when it comes to that approach when a child is struggling through that anxiety, whether it's social anxiety, separation anxiety, or just generalized anxiety. Because kids are exhibiting so much of that these days on trying to feel impressed or trying to meet up to the parents' standards, stretching themselves like a rubber band to the point that they're going to snap. And yes, it does happen. School anxiety, test anxiety, performance anxiety. So we're going to talk about some of these therapy models that may come from it, but also what's going to help and work well with the parents, and what can anxiety look like for some children, and what are also some practical techniques that could be approached in a more healthy dynamic. Because sometimes The key to helping an anxious child isn't just about teaching the coping skills. Sometimes it's helping the entire family experience it all together. Experiential therapy is a family model that blends systemic thinking with humanistic psychology. In simple terms, it focuses on the emotions and the relationships within the family system. Instead of only focusing on thoughts or behaviors, experiential therapy focuses on the other family members that experience one or another emotional regulation one at a time. Now, there are so many different influencers when it comes to the family therapy dynamics, such as Virginia Satir, and she was the pioneer in experiential family therapy because she addresses certain issues such as communication. Communication is key in a healthy family relationship dynamic, but not just what the family says, but how they say it and how they are able to emotionally respond to one another. Because a child is more prone to express what they need to express or share what they need to share when the parent is able to demonstrate more warmth, encouragement, as well as emotional honesty. Virginia Satir once said, "Life is not the way it's supposed to be. It's the way it is. The way you cope, what it is, what makes the difference." So the thing is, like, when we are able to cope and regulate with the child, because I often encourage and coach parents, you don't have the child come up to your level. They don't have that capacity to do it. So as the parent, as the adult, you have to come down to their level in a way that they can understand. You've been a kid before too. Sometimes I say, when you did this as a child, what did you wish your parents would have said? Well, I wish they would have done this and this and this, right? Well, if that's what you're sharing with me, how come you can't give that to your own child? Oh my gosh, you're right. I need to talk to my child the way that I would have wanted to be spoken to by my parents. So that quote can perfectly capture the heart of experiential therapy because the goal isn't to eliminate every stressful situation that the family faces. Instead, the goal is to help the family cope as well as to help through experiences that are more healthy and more connected in so many ways. Because Satir described that communication has survival stances, which are ways that the family may react to certain emotional threats. For instance, there's the placating stance, where someone tries to keep peace by agreeing with everyone else when they feel hurt. They just take the punches. Then there's the blaming stance, where someone directs frustration outward and places responsibility on others. It's everyone else's fault. He made me do that. She's told me to say that. You made that choice. But when you blame it on others, you refuse to take that blame for yourself. And then there's the super reasonable stance, where someone becomes more logical and emotionally detached. And the irrelevant stance is where someone else tries to avoid emotional tension by distracting or changing the subject. These communication styles often develop as ways that people try to protect themselves emotionally and mentally, but when we go through these patterns within a family system, it can prevent honest emotional connection. So as I explain these different stances, I want you to think, okay, which one most relates to me? Right, so this can particularly be pretty effective when working with children. One reason is simple. Children often struggle to explain their emotions within words. Adults may say things like, "I'm feeling overwhelmed," or "I'm anxious about the future." But children don't always have that sort of language with those experiences. They can't really correlate them together. Instead, their emotions show up through behaviors. And sometimes those behaviors look like irritability, withdrawal, acting out. And other times, those may appear as anxiety. And anxiety in children can show up in many different ways, such as excessive worrying, or feeling constantly on edge, or difficulty concentrating, irritability, sleep disturbances, and even muscle tensions. So yes, it can affect them mentally as well as somatically. They could feel that. So feeling unable to control their worries, these symptoms can often be confusing for parents to decipher what it is. Is it the anxiety? Is it the ADHD? What is it? And so sometimes they feel helpless and disconnected with the child. But experiential therapy can often help by asking important systemic questions, such as, what role might this child be playing within the family system? What is it by their behaviors? What are they trying to communicate with me? So now as we look at roles on what the child might be playing within the family system, they're part of the system too. They're part of that structure, right? So sometimes children express distress because they feel unseen or unheard. Other times, they may respond to family tension, parental conflicts, and sometimes emotional distance. For example, a child might act out to capture attention when parents are emotionally unavailable. Because I do say, what are you talking about? I'm home every single day. Great. You're physically present, but are you mentally or emotionally present? Are you physically attending? Yes. But are you psychologically attending? And that's the thing, okay? Because you can still be absent even though you're physically present. So sometimes the child may feel disconnected from the parent, or if there's tension going on in the home, such as fights, arguments, finances, whatever it might be, on the verge of divorce or separation, the child can internally feel that because they internalize it in any way that they might, such as, is mommy and daddy fighting because of me? Is it because I didn't do well on my test? That I got that spelling word wrong? Are they fighting because of it? And so they start to internalize and they think that it's their fault when it's not. And anxiety can play tricks on them like that. And they have no one to communicate it to. And so they act out on those behaviors and emotions. So another child might become overly responsible in the household when parents might go through conflict. There was a child that I treated once with severe OCD. And so the parents were aware of it. They were looking at the child like, wow, they're really lining up their shoes. Why are they doing that? And it's like she's screaming for attention because it's like, when there's a problem, that seems to be when you guys actually talk to me. So experiential therapy doesn't blame the child or the parents. Instead, it helps the families explore how emotional dynamics might be contributing to the child's experience. And when those dynamic shifts often happen, children often experience a more safe and less anxious environment. Okay, so when we talked about using open communication strategies and styles, when the child feels unheard, it can be very ineffective. The child has a voice, and I do tell them that. You have a voice. It's a very strong tool. Why don't we use it? And so I teach them, the difference between passive aggressiveness and passiveness, but then assertiveness. We need to be assertive. We need to self-advocate for ourselves. They don't really understand that, and so I have to share some examples there. But one of the most important things about experiential therapy is that the child needs to feel heard. They want to be heard. They have to be heard. And sometimes in order to be heard is through, like that example I gave you about the OCD. That's how they feel heard. Or when they start fighting with brother and sister. That's when they feel heard, because now they're getting the attention. But many children enter therapy feeling confused about why they're even there in the first place. So that's why I like to include the parents in sessions, because then they can learn through communication styles and behaviors and art. And so we're doing a little analysis there, and the parents are better able to understand through the experientials. So some may worry about, are they in trouble? Or others might feel nervous speaking honestly in front of the parents. But as they start to feel heard by me, they start to feel heard by parents. Because there are times like, oh, no, I don't. No, Mom, she's got the floor. Dad, he's got the floor. He's got the voice. Let him have a turn, because we don't want to shut them down, because then it turns into that blamer dynamic. No, if he just cleaned his room, is there a reason why he didn't clean his room? Another example, okay, a child got in trouble for not cleaning her room. Oh, she cleaned it. She cleaned it to the best of her ability. But because she also had to vacuum the room, because of the ADHD symptoms and the oversensory overload and stimulation of the sound of the vacuum, she says it pierces her ears, it hurts, and then it gives her a headache because of the overstimulation, right? It's like, did you communicate that with your parent? No, they wouldn't understand. Did you tell them in the way that you told me? And like, no, I need you to do that. Dad, do you hear her? Mom, do you hear her? Because some children, they don't act out in defiance. Some parents might think that, but they sometimes try to reduce disruptive or chaotic behaviors. So a child might interrupt frequently or talk loudly when they struggle to focus. But while that might be frustrating for the parent or for the teacher, they're trying to reflect on something much deeper, such as, please notice me, please listen to me, please understand me. When children feel misunderstood or unheard, their anxiety actually can increase. And so they might withdraw, become oppositional, and disengage from the therapy process entirely because they become flooded with emotions because I don't know which one I'm supposed to pick and choose because it's all internal right up here, but it's not externalized. They're not there yet. That's why marriage and family therapy or child therapists, they'll help them do that through play, through art, through sand tray, through PCIT, whatever might best fit for the child. But experiential therapists try to create an environment when children feel emotionally safe enough to share those experiences with the parents. Now, that means children understand to participate in ways that feel natural to them. For some children, they might mean talking. Others might do it through drawing or storytelling, like I said. And we like to use little puppets and, we communicate that way. That way there's no threat when they do it. But some of the key concepts here to helping a child understand that their voice matters in the family system. They need to be heard. They don't want to be heard. They need to be heard. It's also very important to recognize that parents often enter therapy feeling overwhelmed as well. I'm a failure as a parent. I'm a bad mom. I'm a bad dad. No, you are not. You are absolutely not. Okay? You just need to understand the child, right? Some people say to me, Andrew, you need to write a children's book. This is amazing. And, parenting style book. And it's like, that's hilarious because then I'll just submit 300 pages of blank pages because there is no real technique to figure out a child, okay? There's no one size fits all. I really wish there was, but it's not. Because even though, let's say a parent might have like 4 different kids, those are 4 different styles you got to figure out, especially when they're in different stages of their life and development. But many parents, they might feel like they've already tried everything and it's not enough. Okay, did you try this? No. Did you try that? No. Did you try this? No. Okay, then you didn't try everything. So let's go with this and see where it goes from there. Because they might feel very emotionally and mentally exhausted from managing their child's worries and sleep struggles and emotional outbursts that they feel like, I've done everything. Well, there's always a lot more to do because when they're on their last leg, they may worry about their child's future and they may question whether they are doing something wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just, how can we tweak it just a little bit, right? Through trial and error, because sometimes these concerns can lead to guilt, frustration, emotional burnout, but experiential therapy acknowledges these realities. Instead of focusing on blame, the therapist may try to redirect by creating a space where parents also feel heard and supported as well. You're not in session to be, you're a bad dad, you're a bad mom. No. It's like, all right, let's take what we got and how can we create a different order of change here so that you guys can progress and thrive and not necessarily survive. All right, that's the goal right there. Because parents may feel understood that they become more capable with their children through patience as well as empathy because they're better able to understand the diagnosis and what it may look and feel like for them and what they might be feeling. So when parents become emotionally regulated, children often follow that behavior. All right, so some of the strengths of experiential therapy is how easily it incorporates creative and child-friendly techniques. Because children don't always communicate the best through traditional conversation, but instead, therapists can use interactive activities such as storytelling, can help the child express different emotional experiences. Sometimes you could share a movie, a Disney movie or a Disney book, and kind of compare, like, what character are you? Which character is your favorite? Okay. And a therapist might even invite a child to tell the story by with the character that faces the challenges, but discovers their strengths along the way. So with boys, what I like to do is superhero therapy. compare themselves to what kind of superhero they're like. Okay, I'm like the Hulk. Oh, that's interesting. Why did you choose the Hulk? Why not Star-Lord, or why not Captain America? Because when I get angry, I turn into the Hulk and I just smash things. I was like, okay, but how did the Hulk turn back into Bruce Banner? It's like he needed to just calm down. I'm like, okay, so you relate to that. Okay, let's figure out a way that we can calm down so that we don't become the Hulk, right? But then even with young girls, where they use Disney princesses, right? Cinderella or Snow White, they might share some experiences with them. And then another way is using techniques through role play, where family members, temporarily switch roles to better understand each other's perspectives. So I should have brought my puppets with me, but sometimes using the puppets, pretending to be the bully or pretending to be the mean cousin or whatever. It's like using that way to have the child develop a toolbox so that they can have that communication to be assertive and knowing what to say in that situation, because the parents can really benefit to see the situation through their child's eyes, not through theirs. And then therapists, like I said, with puppet therapy, sometimes using that to express emotions can benefit by indirectly helping the child through those emotions. But other activities, like I said, superhero shields, family shields, being able to recognize their strengths and challenges can benefit that family system as well. Because, like I said, Virginia Satir emphasized the importance of the mind and body connection, because it's like what I'm thinking is what I'm feeling. And when I feel, I tend to have behaviors. Okay, it's okay to have the thought. You can't control that sometimes. There's initial secondary, this initial thought comes, but then it comes into the emotion of the feelings of your chest and your somatics and your hands are bracing. But you have control over that. Through healthy coping regulation skills, they're able to gain it back. Because I say, once the body is taking over, game over, right? But then how can you be aware of your body and how it's responding so that you can be more internalized or thinking about so that you can gain control back, such as the Hulk, for example. Because she believed that emotions often show up physically in our postures and also within body language. So some examples that someone who takes a placating stance might appear withdrawn or timid. So they just might kind of shut down here a little bit. But someone who takes a blaming stance might point fingers and be aggressive and has a more rigid posture. So family therapy can help recognize these physical cues and increase that awareness of emotional patterns within the family system. So what does it look like for the dad? What does it look like for the mom? What does it look like for brother and sister? All right, closing thoughts. When a child struggles with anxiety, it's easy to focus entirely on the child. But experiential family therapy reminds us that there is something much more powerful, because a child cannot grow in isolation. They grow within relationships. When families learn to communicate with greater honesty, empathy, and emotional connection, the child is going to feel much more safe. And when the children feel emotionally safe, their anxiety can begin to ease. Sometimes the most powerful intervention for a child isn't changing the child. It's helping the family experience with each other in a new way, because it's what is going on in the home. That is always my go-to. What is going on within those four walls? Because a home is supposed to be a place of refuge and protection and safety. Because when families are able to connect more deeply, children finally feel something that every child deserves to feel. They need to feel heard, understood, and supported. Thank you for listening into my podcast, NeuroCurious. If this episode helped you better understand ADHD and family struggles, consider sharing it with another parent or someone that you feel like may need it. Remember, the more curious we become about our mind, the better we become at understanding each other. Until next time, see ya. This podcast is for educational and personal uses only and is not to be a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling or need mental health support, I encourage you to reach out to a licensed mental health professional in your area.